In this video, I will install version 9 of Filebeat, which from what I can tell works the same as version 8. Filebeat is a lightweight software that ships logs of various services from your server to Elasticsearch or to Logstash. In this video, I will demonstrate how to set up Filebeat to ship system logs and web server logs to Elasticsearch. For our YouTube members, I have videos that show how to use Filebeat to ship logs to Logstash as part of more advanced architectural Logstash patterns. And for everyone else, I have a lot of old videos that show how to configure Filebeat and the Elk stack to send email notifications based on events that you are monitoring. These videos were made for version 8, but they still seem to work for version 9. If I get a chance, I will try to create videos on version 9 of Kibana alerts and notifications. With that out of the way, let's get started with this Filebeat demonstration. To start, I've already set up an instance of Elasticsearch and Kibana. They're both running off of the same server. I basically just followed the guide from our previous video. I will give a link to the previous video in the description of this video if you need to remember how to set up Elasticsearch with Kibana. So once that's set up, we're ready to move on to installing Filebeat on a server that needs to ship logs to Elastic. So I have this server here. It's a brand new instance of Ubuntu 24.04. It has 1 GB of memory on it. And what we'll do is we'll install Filebeat to this server, and we'll also install some services to the server which will generate logs, and then we'll ship those logs over to Elasticsearch. In terms of what services to install here, I'm thinking maybe we'll install Apache or Nginx or something similar. So with that said, before we can actually do any of these things, we should update this server because it's a brand new instance of Ubuntu. So we should do the usual package updates and distribution updates. And I also want to install Vim as my text editor. I'll probably need curl to download things, and NewPG and GBG because they're popular libraries that are dependencies to most things that we need to use anyway. So I'll pause until this Ubuntu system is up to date. Now that this server is up to date, we can go ahead and install Filebeat. And I've summarized the instructions here. They were basically pulled straight from the official documentation. If you go here, quick start, setup and run, we're using the aptitude libraries. So I just copied this and paste it all here so we can just do this all in one shot. I'll just paste it in like this. And we'll let this thing go. Okay, it looks like Filebeat should be installed now, and you can confirm this by going to etc Filebeat, and if you look in this directory here, you can see there are these configuration files that Filebeat will use, and if I do an ls hyphen or usr share Filebeat in here, you'll notice some other binaries or useful tools that Filebeat needs to use. The actual Filebeat command is found in here in this binary directory. So the first thing we should do before configuring too many things about Filebeat itself is decide what logs on this server you want to send over to Elasticsearch. And you can decide that by looking in this modules.d directory. So let me make this screen a little bit bigger like this and go into the modules.d directory. When I do an ls, you can see a list of services that Filebeat is familiar with, and Filebeat can ship the logs of these services over to your Elasticsearch over here. Most of them have been disabled. Is it most? Or actually all of them have been disabled as a start. But what we can do is enable some of them. So let me enable just this one. I do so by doing this. Rename it to system.yaml. So just drop the .disabled extension. And in here, what you do is anything that says enabled false, set it to true. So I'm just going to search for any terms that says false and replace it with true. Yeah, just replace it all like that. And what this will do then is this will ship all the log entries found in this file here. Let me just ls var log syslog. Okay, so any entries found in this file will be shipped over to Elasticsearch. So that's what this system.yaml will do. So we'll turn on the other ones as necessary throughout this video, but it's good to start with this system.yaml. So with that done, let's see what we should do next. So in terms of what we need to do next is we need to do a setup, meaning before we can actually use Filebeat, we need to configure Elasticsearch with some resources and assets that allow Filebeat to work properly. And we can find that in the documentation here. So what we need to do first is create a setup role and associate the setup role with a user that can do the actual setup. What we need to do in setups are things like mappings, putting in some dashboards, putting in some Kibana objects, maybe some data views and other indices that Filebeat needs. So that's the responsibility of the setup. The user that does the setup needs these types of privileges, and I've summarized them over here. So let's go ahead and just follow this guide and set up the role and set up a user to use that role. So I'll go to Stack Management, and under here we start with the role, and I will create a role called Filebeat Setup. Setup, and let's give it the cluster privileges monitor and manage ILM. Monitor, manage, index lifecycle management. And I have an entire series on index lifecycle management from version 8, which I believe should still be relevant to version 9. I will link to that series in the description of this video. Next, the Filebeat index needs the manage privilege. So Filebeat star, and it needs to be able to manage. And we'll create this role. Next, let's create a user that can use this role. So if I go to users and create a new user, I'll call it Filebeat user. The full name can be anything, email can be anything. And for the password, let's keep it simple, ABCD1234. ABCD1234, and we need the Filebeat setup, and we also need Kibana admin, and we need the ingest admin, this one. So let's go ahead and create that user, and with the user made, we can now edit the YAML file. So let's go over here, and this file is pretty much the same as the Filebeat from Elasticstack version 8. First thing we'll do is take a look at the Filebeat inputs. By default, all logs, all files that end at .log extension in the var log directory, they're not going to be read by default. But if you change this to true, it will start reading that. The next section here is we want to confirm that there is a modules.d directory, and we just turned on system.yaml. So that will be read from here. We're not going to do automatic reloading. So that means that anytime we edit files in the modules.d directory, we will need to manually restart the systemd service. So we'll have to manually type systemctl restart Filebeat. Towards the end of the video, I'll do a demonstration where reload.enabled is set to true. That way you don't have to manually do a systemctl restart Filebeat. Instead, well, then every 10 seconds or whatever your period set this to, Filebeat will automatically pick up the changes in your modules.d directory and apply them to your instance of Filebeat. So that's what this section is for. Let's just skip straight to the connection to the Elastic Stack. We need to find the setup.kibana, which is right here. And we need to change the host to the URL, which is 192.46.223.173, and we are going to we are using TLS certificates, so we do need to do sl.certificate authorities. And I need to grab the CA that signed the TLS certificates for Kibana. So once we get it, we're going to put it in here, Filebeat certs, and I'll call it http ca.cert. So let's grab this file right now. I'm going to open up an SSH connection to this server. So one moment. All right, so this is the SSH window to this server here. And let's grab the CA certificate. That would be this. I'm going to copy this. Copy. And let's paste it into our certs directory. Certs http ca.cert, paste it in here, and this will allow Filebeat to verify the TLS certificate of the Kibana server. So we don't need this anymore. I'll just exit out of here. Okay, we've done that. Let's continue. Let's go to the Elasticsearch connection. That will be over here. And again, our Elastic and Kibana are on the same server, so I'll just point to the same destination. 173. We are using HTTPS. Turn that on. Let's put in our Filebeat user. And the password we selected was ABCD1234. And let's make sure we get our TLS or our CA certificate authorities. etc Filebeat certs, and we pasted it in here. Okay, and I might as well add this rule, which we're going to be doing. I'm going to talk about this rule just a little bit further down, but I might as well paste it in here right now before we forget. Okay, so I'll explain this part a little bit later. And I think we're ready to test our configuration file. So I'll take these two commands here, and this will just make sure there are no errors in our file. So if I run this, configuration, no issues, and the connection to Elasticsearch seems to be all good. And now we should be ready to run the setup. Let me just show you something in Elasticsearch for a moment. If I click to dashboards, right now there are no dashboards. And if I click to discover, nothing here either. I believe under observability, this box has not been populated. If I run the setup command right now, in a moment, oh, looks like there is an error. It could not connect to this Kibana. So give me a moment to try to debug this. Oh wait, I see right here it says I'm supposed to be using TLS. So why did it not have TLS? Let's scroll up. Oh, right. I should be typing it in here like this. Okay, now let's try this setup command again. Good. Okay, so this will take a while. Now, if this is successful, then we should see Filebeat here and in those other pages that I mentioned. So I'm going to pause until this is done. It could take a few minutes. All right, this says successful. Now we can confirm this by hitting reload here. And okay, I don't see any update here, but let's maybe take a look at the dashboards. Great, so now we see all these Filebeat boiler template dashboards made half a minute ago. And if I click to discover, I can see that a data view has been set up for Filebeat, and you can see all these fields associated with that data view. No data is in here yet, but at least the whole schema and the mappings are set up. So let's see what the next step is. So the next step is to create a publishing role. And I haven't had 100% success on this part the whole time. I've always had to do a little bit of a band-aid, but let me try to explain what this publishing role is supposed to be. We created a setup role just to set up everything, but that's a rather escalated, privileged type of user, or a role that is kind of more escalated than you really need for daily publishing needs. So the Elasticsearch team recommends that you set up a less privileged role, which they call the publish role, that will be used for submitting data to Elasticsearch. So that's why they have this documentation over here that says for setting up a publishing user, you should have these types of privileges, which is not as privileged as the setup. But I've noticed that when I use these privileges, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And in situations where they don't, I get errors in the syslog file, in the var log syslog file. And when I do get these errors, what I end up doing is just combining the roles of publishing user and setup user towards the Filebeat user that we created. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try this first, and if it doesn't work, we'll combine the Filebeat setup role with the publishing role. But let's try with just this publishing role. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Stack Management. Let's go to the roles again, and let's create a new role called the Filebeat Publisher. I'm going to paste it in here, and we need the monitor read underscore ILM and read underscore pipeline. For the Filebeat index, we need two different privileges. We need create doc, and we need the auto configure, like that. Let's press create role. Let's go back to our Filebeat user over here. And under here, let's click here. We're going to delete these roles and use just the Filebeat publisher. And if we get errors, we'll add in addition those Filebeat setup, Kibana admin, and ingest roles as well. But let's try this out. And with that, let's see, what else should we do? Oh, right. There's a couple of things I also like to do. Is the first is that in our filebeat.yaml file, we are accessing Elastic with a username and password. If we use an API key instead, that would be slightly more secure, right? That way you're not disclosing passwords for a user. And the second thing we should do is not to actually store sensitive information in this file. Instead, we can use something called the Filebeat key store, and the key store can store secrets separate from this YAML file. The secrets will be loaded into Filebeat during runtime. So we're going to use both the key store and API key to make things a little bit more secure. First thing we should do is create the API key. And I do that by going over here, and let's go to Dev Tools, and you can see from here that's just a past experiment that I was running. But let's just paste it in here, and the password is ABCD1234. And I'm going to copy this, paste it to a text editor, and we need to structure our API key in a very specific format, which is to take the ID, paste it like this, and then take the API key and paste it after the colon like this. And if I wanted to, I could just copy this and paste it right in here and uncomment this line. But instead of doing that, let's make a key store to send this piece of information to Filebeat during runtime. And we do that by going a little bit further down, by running this command over here. And we're going to create a variable called ESAPI for the key store. So let's paste this here. And does not, oh yes, I want to create it. And the value is this over here. Copy, paste. And we want to use this variable in here. So let's go down. We don't need these lines anymore. Let's go over here. Paste the variable. And now we're ready to actually start up Filebeat. Okay, and let's hopefully everything will actually work. Okay, no errors so far. And what I can do is go over to the Dev Tools over here. We'll actually go to Discover tab and see if logs are coming in. Okay, no logs. So we can take a look at the var log directory. And I don't see any issues right off the bat. Okay, nothing so far. Maybe we just have to wait a little bit. No logs have come in yet. So I'm going to take a look in here. There's a log level. Okay, there's an error. The connection failed because of, yeah, this is the error that I've been getting, and it looks like the publishing user is missing some roles. I find that if I add this to the cluster privileges, then it works. But that might work for just the system.yaml file or the system module, but maybe it'll fail for the Apache module, MySQL service, or any other services. So I think I'll just go back to my original Band-Aid solution, which is to have the Filebeat user have both the privileges of the setup role and the publishing role. So let's try that out. Let me go over here, Stack Management. Let's go back to Users over here, and let's click over here, and let's give this user the Filebeat setup, and also the Kibana admin, and also the ingest admin. Press update, and just because we've pressed update, I don't think that is complete yet. That doesn't complete all our steps. I believe we're still going to get errors because of the API token. Let me click back. Error 1515. So this was just a few seconds ago. Yeah. So the issue is that the API token we created, so that would be back over here. If I click on API keys, we just made this API key 5 minutes ago, but the problem is it's still associated with the privileges from 5 minutes ago. It hasn't picked up on the latest permission and role changes that we did. So we need to actually destroy this API key and recreate the API key that captures the modern or the most recent changes. So let's make this again. I'm going to copy this, go over to our text file here, paste it like this. Let's reconstruct our API key like this. And let's copy this, update our key store, which was this command we did earlier. It says overwrite it, yes, paste, enter, systemctl, restart Filebeat, and hopefully that will be successful. I'll go over to the Discover tab and wait. Oh, look, it's working already. Okay, so that's been my solution, is to combine the setup role with the publish role together for this user, and now it seems to have the permissions to submit logs to the Elastic Stack. And we can test, because if I do, let's say, pizza, and in a moment I should be able to search for pizza. Could take a few seconds, so I'll pause. All right, now the pizza has appeared. What we can do next is let's install another module. Let's go to modules.d and let's install a web server and record Apache logs. Yeah, let's copy or move Apache to apache.yaml, Apache, and let's convert all the false to true. And we're going to need to install Apache as well. All right, I think Apache has been installed. Let me just figure out what my IP address is for this server. It is this one over here. So I'm going to open up a website to this URL. Great, Apache has been installed. And now what I'll do is systemctl restart Filebeat. And then Filebeat should be able to pick up the new Apache module. And I can confirm all this by going to dashboards. Let's look for Apache. And in a moment, I should see some data. Yep, there we go. So that's how we've enabled Apache. If you don't want to always have to run the systemctl restart Filebeat after changes in here, we can go over here, go into our filebeat.yaml file, and you can always just set this to be true. Which part? Let me find it. Reload enabled. Yeah, we can set this to true. Oh, reload. There we go. Set this to true, and we'll give it a reload period of something that's not too taxing on the server, so maybe 5 minutes. And let's see if I systemctl restart Filebeat. Let's just make sure this is okay. All right, no issues. And let's stop Apache. And let's actually install Nginx web server. apt-get install -y Nginx. Okay, Nginx web server has been installed. If I hit reload here, pretty sure Apache has been stopped. Let me just take a look. Go into HTML index. So let's replace the Apache index with the Nginx index. Whoops. Hit reload. Let me just see. Oh, copy or move. Great, so Nginx is up and running, and let's go to etc modules.d. Let's move the Nginx to nginx.yaml, and let's replace all the false with true. And even without restarting systemctl, we should be able to start seeing information about Nginx in the, let's see, which one is it? Probably this one. Hit refresh. Oh, I probably have to wait 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes. So let me just generate some data, and I'll pause for a few minutes, and then we'll check on this afterwards. And now it looks like we actually have some Nginx data after waiting about 5 minutes or so. So that concludes this video. Next, I recommend you check out some of our videos on Logstash. And for our members, you should watch our videos on integrating Beats library with Logstash into more advanced architectural patterns. Thank you, and see you all in the next video.